I've been asked about how I do warm-ups and what do you practice to get better at drawing and more confident. And I think when we go to the gym, we ride the bike for a few minutes to get the muscles moving and the legs moving and all that sort of stuff, a bit of extra breathing. And drawing's the same sort of thing. And a lot of the drawings and design thinking drawing, as I've said many times, are very simple drawings. You just need to be confident in drawing lines and tones and shapes and the like, textures. And that takes a bit of practice and also the language of what drawing is. So these are the warm-ups I get people to do in workshops. I'll just go through them pretty quickly. The first thing that we need to do is consider what a line is, and I have a particular view of lines. I like lines to be, generally straight, positive purpose, single line, not lots of lines joined together. And lines start and finish somewhere. And what I've noticed when I'm drawing is when I'm drawing a line, I often visualize where the end of the line is. So what I get people to do is just put some dots on the paper in different locations. And then I say join the dots, and the idea is if you start there, you've got to get down to here and make it fairly accurate, and you can't kind of bend it. So, if you, not too bad, coming through there, that one's not too bad, that one's there. So you get a sense of control of the line, where it stops and where it starts. I think that's pretty important. The other thing to notice is the way I hold these magnificent pens, which are the Artline Ergo lines, 0.6. They're actually designed to be held down here, but I hold them up here usually, and partly because I get more flexibility in the wrist, and I'll talk about the wrist later, and it means you can go faster. I think if you hold the pen down here, yes, you can do all of that, but I think that you get a more precise and careful line and more accurate. But naturally you will go a bit slower, I think, because of the way that you hold the pen. I could be wrong about that, but that's my general thinking. So if you start setting up all these lines on a page and then joining the dots, you get used to the feel of the pen on the paper, the way the line works, and a bit more confident, just nice, straight, positive lines. So that's the first one. The second one is that, if we start to then say draw a line at the edge of the page and at the edge of the page, and this exercise is a little bit about measuring in proportion, which is also very important when you're drawing. So I say, well, can you draw a line in the middle of those two? So you have to then make a judgment as to equal, that's probably slightly wider than that one if I look at it, and then halfway again, and halfway again, and halfway again, and halfway again. You can see that I'm trying to keep this parallel as possible, not doing a very good job. And that one there, and probably there's one more that I can get, and say don't make the lines touch. So this comes down to the observation that the first 3 lines you draw become the frame of reference for the next 50 lines you draw, or 100 lines you draw. So what you're trying to do is to sort of set up the framework of the drawing and then filling in that with more information, more detail. And I'll talk more about it a bit later on. Within the same set of issues here, about halfway in proportions, is say, well, what if we wanted to draw a square? So we have to visualize, a square equal. It's pretty straightforward. You can visualize that line and that line there. A 2-to-1 proportion. Probably not quite right. And even lots of practice, I don't get these things right. That should probably be there. And then a 2:3 square. So if you say, well, that's probably more like that, where that's 3 and that's 2, that's 1, that's 2, that's 1, that's 1. And a lot of the drawings I look at are actually based on measuring and looking at squares and rectangles and getting the sense of proportion correct, because one of the challenges when you're sketching is to try to make it semi-accurate, so at least you can recognise the place where you are. And so the next task I say was, well, infill these with just cross-hatching. And this is a discipline that is, you know, tedious in some extent and tiresome and exhausting, but it's actually well worth the exercise. It teaches you a degree of patience, a degree of accuracy. You can see I haven't got all the lines exactly parallel and equal. Some are slightly wider than others. I think that's generally okay. So if you start to do some cross-hatching, you learn and get the lines close together, not touching. It's really important to just be careful and work at it, work through get the shape working right. You can do the next one as well. So when I'm doing drawings, I'm looking at, is this a square, double square, rectangle, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and obviously squares and rectangles as parts of each other is also very helpful and useful. So that's one set of things with lines. The next one is another useful thing to draw, and it's a circle. And when I draw a circle, I often will put a dot in the middle, just so you've got a place to go around. You can see that I've actually not got that too well done. That's less than that, but nonetheless, it's not too bad. And you can start to draw more circles. But if I said draw another circle using that as a dot and make it this big, you know, you've then got to be drawing this line, considering, you know, that line and that line is equal. Now you can see again I've not got it too right there, but very good practice. And then you can start to draw other circles. In the centre is really more there, build a target. So if we try that again, we'll do a circle here, and then a larger circle, and then a circle halfway, and again not touching. And that starts to build a bit of control in your hand, drawing the circle whichever way you want to go. I did that one both ways, coming around. And, you know, they're useful shapes. They're often shapes we use in urban design drawings and architectural drawings generally, and of course they're rows of trees and the like. So we could start to then draw a row of trees. And this is a motif that figures a lot in urban design drawings for me. The row of trees, generally on both sides of the street, is the suggestion of high quality urbanism, because every street I've been to with avenues of trees in it, footpaths and the like, are always a nicer quality street. And if we want to get some depth, you know, we can, in the southern hemisphere, the sun is in the northern sky, and north's always up to the top of the page. And in the morning, it comes through, and so you're getting the shadows, 10:30 a.m., midwinter or midsummer or equinox. But you can start to then build some three-dimensional depth, and then as we begin to, you know, start to draw on simple boxes and the rectangles from before, we can always put some shadows on them as well. And you can see in this particular case, I'm not doing that cross-hatching, I'm just doing that cross-hatching, which is also a very useful thing to do. And again, done fairly carefully. And you can put shadows on here. And buildings often have roofscapes and roof shapes, and sometimes you might even have a high roof that could come in, or a staircase that comes through, or whatever it might do. And then this might be not as high, this building, this could be taller, so we might make the shadow a bit deeper. So that might be 5 stories, that might be 3 stories, and then in behind you might have some car spaces or whatever that might be. So you can start drawing in curbs, you can start drawing in, if you wanted to put in some cars. If you want to draw a boundary in, I often use a dot dash line. So you can see very quickly how you can build up a bit of a plan. Now, one of the tricks with design thinking drawing is the thinking part of it. The drawing part's the easiest part, really, once you get more used to it. But knowing how deep these buildings are, how wide these streets might be, 20, 24 metres, whatever it would be, widths of pavements. I won't talk about that too much now, but if we're to be effective designers, we do need to have a sense immediately of all the dimensions and sizes of things. So, that's some simple, principles and exercises about practicing. And I practice every day with drawing. I constantly doodle. I'll be in a meeting, or I'll be thinking of something, and I'll have a little idea for a plan, and you might just start to think about something that could be a design possibility, and you just scribble in your drawing. Sometimes it's intuitive, sometimes it's with some purpose and direction of testing some kind of idea. But certainly, if we can start to draw lines coming through, it's all very good. Now, the other thing is about vegetation, and I've got some particular views about that, and it comes down to the idea that are we drawing, is our hand still when we draw, and we just move the arm, and I move my arm, and I am moving the elbow from here. And obviously, if we don't move the elbow, how do we draw a line if we have our arm stiff? So clearly a stiff arm, and you just keep the elbow steady, and you draw from the shoulder. That's all possible. But equally, if we can move, you can see the wrist is still, but I'm moving from the elbow there. But I think what's interesting is that lines start to get more life when you start to sort of work from the wrist, and you start to get some things happening. You're starting to kind of get some movement around there, and that suits with vegetation, and then you can start to put some shadows in. Put some dots always helps. Maybe there's a space in there with a clearing of some sort. And so, you can start to get a line that's got a bit of life to it, a bit of energy. And that's always really nice, because often the architectural drawings tend to be much more, steady and strong. So you could have maybe there's a canopy there in a park or something. But this is sort of like a forest of some sort. And so quickly you can just build up a quick story of what the design is. It's not very complex, quite simple. So I'd encourage everybody to just practice as much as you can, drawing straight lines, visualising where they start and stop, putting dots on the page if you want, drawing shapes, drawing hatchings and tones, practicing putting shadows on drawings, vegetation and the like coming through. So, they're simple warm-ups that I like to recommend. So I'd encourage everybody to have a go if you're keen on being better at design thinking drawing. So this will be on the webpage fairly soon, and my Instagram is PR_design thinking drawings. Everything I talk about and draw is on there. Urban sketching, workshops, work from the office and the like. So please look at that if you don't already know it. Thanks very much.